Today, we are interviewing local author Jane Sutter Brandt. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. Although I live in Rochester, New York right now, I still feel very tied to Burlington. And prior to the pandemic, I was coming back at least a couple of times a year. So I'm looking forward to when I can return to my hometown again.
Definitely. This pandemic has really changed everything up for us.
It has, it has. And I think it's great that you're doing these interviews on Zoom. Thank you.
Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your writings?
Yes. Well, I grew up in Burlington, and I'm part of the Sutter family. Some of your viewers who are my age and older will remember Sutter Drug Company. And I started out, my first part-time job was as working at the soda fountain as a soda jerk. And I went to Notre Dame High School, graduated in 1977, went to University of Missouri for journalism, and returned and worked at Hawkeye as a reporter for about 3 years. And then my journalism career took me to the Chicago area, then down to Florida. Long story short, I moved up to Rochester, New York a number of years ago, where my husband is from, worked for a newspaper there. And then about 6 years ago, decided that it was time to kind of take a new path in my life. And I ended up leaving the newspaper business. My husband was getting ready to retire. We wanted more time together. And I had this old scrapbook that my great aunt Ursula Sutter Schutze had put together about the history of our family drugstore. It lasted for 90 years, started in 1903, and I'd always thought about doing a book on that. And so I started researching, doing some book writing, self-publishing. I talked to Chris Murphy down at Burlington by the Book when I was home to do some research. And he was very encouraging and said that he would stock my book and hold a book signing for me. And that kind of launched a second career for me. So since then, I published Sutter Soda Satisfy, a memoir of 90 years of Sutter Drug Company in 2015. And then in 2019, I published Beloved Burlington, featuring businesses you knew and loved, which featured about a dozen businesses that we baby boomers and older people would remember. And people loved it. It has a lot of old photos in it. And now I'm just finishing up helping an author write her memoir. I'm her co-writer of her memoir, and it's called God's Teardrop: My Journey of Healing from Addiction and Prostitution, and that will be coming out in about a month.
Cool. You've been busy.
Yes, I've been very busy, and in fact, if you'd like, I can go to screen share and just show you a few things about those books. So I have on my website, I do freelance writing and editing, and I've helped other authors with their books. So this one I'm very excited about. I met a woman named Delina Harper just a few years ago, and about 5 years ago actually, and she had this amazing story of how she had turned her life around. And she was a former crack addict and prostitute. And so we wrote this book. We're self-publishing it, and that's going to come out hopefully around the end of November. And this is a picture of Delina there on the page. Beautiful Black woman who was born in Minnesota and overcame a lot of different traumas, and is now doing really well. I met her here in Rochester, but she has since moved back to Minnesota and is working there. And then I also can show the books that I've done. So this is my most recent book, Beloved Burlington, featuring businesses you knew and loved. And it has businesses in it like Schramm's Department Store, Reapy Peterson's Men's Store, Ganon's Bookstore, John H. Whitty and Sons Pharmacy, Cameraland, the Typewriter Shop. As I said, a lot of businesses that other people would remember. And I'm actually working on a sequel on that now that will come out in about a year. And so I'm going to have businesses like Hotel Burlington, Camp Laundry, the Gift Center, uh, Gustafson Dairy. I'm just in the process of reaching out to people doing research on that, the movie theaters, Capitol Theater, Palace Theater, etc. So I'm very excited to get deeper into writing that book. Then I can also show you down here, this is a cover of my book, Sutter Sodas Satisfy. And so this is the first book that I did. And this is my great-grandfather way back here in the back left corner, who started the business in 1903. And the drugstore was always known for the soda fountain. And so I decided to title the book after that. And I had a lot of fun doing that book, interviewing people who had worked at the drugstore, getting their memories, a lot of old photos in there that you can see here on this page too. So all of this is on my website, suttermedia.net. So people can check that out. And then I should also mention that my husband is getting into writing and self-publishing, and he has a novel that's coming out this month, As Beautiful as This. I've been his editor on the book, and it's called As Beautiful as This, a novel of the reconciliation of war and peace within an American family. My husband's Gary Brandt, so that's coming. This is a picture of his father from World War II. So it's a novel about a family with a long military legacy, and what happens when one of the sons, three of the sons go off to the Vietnam War, and one of them comes back and decides he just cannot continue his tour of duty, and he flees to Canada for a while. So we're looking forward to getting that out, and we think that we'll have that available down at Burlington by the Book also. So those are some of the things that I have been up to lately.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great. So what else would you like to talk about?
Did you use the library in any process of writing your books?
Yes, I absolutely did. For both of my books, I came in and I used the microfiche, the old city directories, the files about local businesses, the hard copy that you have, and also the photo archive that you have. So I definitely used those resources, and they were really, I mean, everybody was fabulous to work with. And I've been fortunate that I've also worked some, I'll mention, with the Des Moines Historical Society, the Des Moines County Historical Society. And a couple of years ago, they put on a thumb drive a lot of the old city directories up till 1940. And that's been really a great source for me, because I'm a 2-day drive away from Burlington. So I've been able to use that quite a bit for research. And I also have made use of the website newspaperarchive.com, which perhaps the library has a subscription to. I'm not sure.
We do. Yep.
You do, yeah. So that's a great resource, and I have my own subscription, but that's been, I could not have done the Beloved Burlington book without that as a resource. Being able to search for names, newspaper articles, put in specific years when I knew certain things had happened. I should also mention that with the Beloved Burlington book, I sat down and did interviews either in person or over the phone with either the people who started these businesses or their family members. And, you know, and some of them had photos that I could use. I also was able to borrow some photos and use some photos from the Historical Society and also from Downtown Burlington Partnership. So they've all been great, you know, great partners for me in doing my book writing. One of the things I've learned with nonfiction book writing is it's a huge collaboration with so many different people. Of course, being able to use the internet is really good, but excuse me, there's still a lot of history that's not available on, on the internet. And the kinds of stories that family members share, like when I interviewed Kurt and Mike Dewald, whose grandfather started the Aryan restaurant. They told me great stories about how their grandfather was a bootlegger, things that you're not going to find in newspaper articles, right? So just being able to, sit down, and it's also reacquainted me with a number of people that I grew up with, like the Dewalds. We went to school together, so that was fun to reacquaint with them. With Ann Hass, whose father was one of the owners of Benan's, and I went to school with her daughters, and John Randolph, who is a descendant of the Shrams, who his mother was a Shram, and of course he's a bit older than I am. But being able to sit down with him and his wife Susan to really pick their brains about Shrams, all the different departments. They had some wonderful old photos that I was able to use in the book. It's really been a great collaboration, and that's why I'm excited about writing this sequel on other businesses. Because if there's one thing I've learned about people in Burlington, is they love local history. They really do. I should also mention a good source for me has also been Facebook. And that's allowed me to meet people, connect with people through Facebook. There's the Historical Photos of Burlington, Iowa Facebook group. There's Pictures of Burlington, Iowa Facebook group. There's You Are From Burlington, Iowa Facebook group. Then there's also the Forgotten Iowa Historical Society. So all of these have some just wonderful history on them that people post and talk about. And I've actually had people who met me through Facebook, who I've then been able to feature in my books or in my upcoming book. For example, when I had a book signing at Burlington by the Book for the beloved Burlington book last year, about this time last year, I was approached by David Camp, he was a local dentist. He's retired now, and he told me all about his family business, Camp Laundry, that existed for 40, 50 years downtown that I didn't really remember. But he has wonderful old photos, so that I'm doing a chapter on Camp Laundry in my next book too. So it's been really great to just be able to connect with all of these different people, even though I have not lived in Burlington since 1984. So I've kept my ties just this way, and I really feel that it's been an honor to write about these different businesses, not just my family business. When I wrote the book about Sutter drugstore, I did not have any intention of writing another book about Burlington. I just didn't see how that would be possible because I didn't live in Burlington. But as I, started thinking more about it and decided that I could do a book where each chapter was about a different business rather than trying to do an entire book just on Shrams. And I have to say that Chris Murphy at Burlington by the Book has been he's such a wonderful supporter of our local authors, as you know. And I remember after I wrote the Sutter book and it was popular, he said to me on one of my trips back, he said, "I know what you should write your next book on." And I said, "What?" And he pointed across the street to the Shrams building and he said, "Shrams." And I know I laughed out loud and I said, "Chris, I was only able to write the book about Sutters because I had these photos, I had these newspaper clippings, etc., that my great aunt had collected. But that thought remained lodged in my head, and it truly was not until a few years later that I sat down and really started mapping out doing this beloved Burlington book. And one of the first places that I turned to was Facebook. And I posted in the historical photos of Burlington, Iowa group. I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a book about other businesses. What businesses do you remember? And I got dozens and dozens of responses. And in fact, it's funny because just recently somebody saw that thread on Facebook and they started posting on it. So it went back to the top. And more people have been adding things, even though the original thread was from 2018.
They're just giving you more material for that next book.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I feel confident there will be a second book, maybe a third one down the road. I'm not sure. One of the bigger challenges, I will say, is getting the photos, because people back in the day didn't take a lot of photos. You know, you had a camera, you had to take the film in, you know, have it processed, had prints made, and a lot of families, over time, those photos deteriorate, they get thrown out. Mary Rosenberg, who she and her husband owned the typewriter shop, which her husband's father had started, they were the victim of one of the many floods in downtown Burlington. So a lot of photos that they had got destroyed. It was in their basement in their building downtown, and those got destroyed. So she did not have very many photos. Same with Mariana Brink. I wrote about Brink's clothing store, and a lot of their photos had gone up in a fire in a different building that her son owned, and they had photos and articles and things stored there. So they didn't have very many photos. A lot of their photos had been destroyed. So that can be a real challenge too, because as much as I want to think that my writing is beautiful, I know people are really interested in the photos. So
Where can our patrons get your books? I know we have a copy of it here.
yes, I know you have copies of Sutter, So to Satisfy, and Beloved Burlington. I'm happy to say that Chris Murphy is my primary vendor at Burlington by the Book for these books. And I feel it's really important to patronize local businesses, and you can go in and pick them up. Chris will mail them to you. If you live out of the Burlington area, you can call him, give him your credit card number, or you can mail him a check, and he will promptly send the books out to you. And I will also encourage people to just go into Burlington by the Book and look at all the different local authors that he has. He has wonderful nonfiction by other authors from the region, and he has wonderful fiction also from authors from the region. And it's been great for me to pick up some of those books, like Russ Fry's books. Keith Schultz, he wrote a novel a few years ago that is kind of like a Stephen King novel that I thought was excellent. I can also mention that I do have a blog if people want to follow it. It's called, it's all about, right now I've been running short excerpts from my beloved Burlington book with some photos. So it's called suttercommunications.wordpress.com. And you can also access it through my website. But that's a blog that I focus on pretty much exclusively things related to Burlington history, things like that. And I actually should mention that I have in the past taught a blogging workshop at the library. So that was fun. I did that about a year, maybe 2 years ago. And that was a lot of fun. So hopefully when we're able to do things in person again, I'll be able to do that. Or maybe down the road, I'll be able to do some things on Zoom, because I know you're using Zoom a lot too.
Yes, Most of our programming is on Zoom right now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I've actually developed some programming related to self-publishing that I've been presenting on Zoom through some of our local libraries. So I will have to share that with you and Rhonda and see if you're interested in maybe having me do something like that. But I really think it's great that the library has been doing this Sterling Lord Festival. It just has happened that I've never been able to come in person. So in a way, it's benefited me that you're not being able to hold it in person this year. So I'm really happy to connect with people, and I'm looking forward to watching the videos with your other authors too. Yeah. And can you tell me where I'll be able to find those?
So they'll be on our Facebook page and our YouTube page. I release
Okay.
about 2 to 3 every Friday at 10 a.m.
Okay, great. Good. I'm going to go and check that out. And I also just want to, I'm going to give a plug to the wonderful Friends of the Library group that you have there. And I've gotten to know several of them, and they, in April of 2019, they invited me to be their guest speaker for their annual dinner. And I had a lot of fun at that dinner. I was still writing the Beloved Burlington book, but some of the people were there whose businesses were going to be featured in the book. So that made it a lot of fun for me to, to be able to talk about what they had told me about their businesses and kind of tease the book that way too.
We're very lucky to have the Friends of the Library. They make so much possible here.
Yes, they do. They do. I know that through the book sales, they've been able to turn over money for programming for you to use, and also they also collect membership dues, etc. And the little bookstore that they have is just a gem. Their Footnotes, is that what it's called?
Yep,
I think.
that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's a gem. My husband, in fact, whenever we come to Burlington, the library is one of his favorite places to visit. And if I'm off doing interviews or seeing family or whatever, he has no problem just going to the library for 2, 3, 4 hours. He's always taking pictures of MacArthur Bridge out the window. He'll take his laptop, he'll sit there and he'll write and do email, etc. So he, in recent years, has spent more time in the library than I have, I think.
Well, hopefully as soon as we open completely back up, he can come in again and enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. We're all keeping our fingers crossed for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully within the next 12 months, we'll be able to do that.
Hopefully.
Right, good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to your next book.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. It was nice to meet you via Zoom, and I look forward to meeting you in person someday.